Mind Body Life show hosted by Frederick Enteman on Global Voice Radio on Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern. During his show, Mind Body Life founder and best-selling author Frederick Enteman investigates the little-known insights and daily methods used to create explosive life transformations and transitions with those that have risen from struggle and ascended to greatness. Here is your Mind Body Life host, Frederick Enteman.
Welcome to the Mind Body Life show. I'm your host, Frederick Enteman. This is episode 22. I'm a former professional athlete. I'm a best-selling author of Surviving Sports in the Game of Life, a coach and consultant for athletes. And I help athletes, especially professional athletes, create lasting success outside of sports and win the game of life. I want to welcome you to episode 22. And what I'm going to talk about in this episode are boundaries and more or less proven strategies that keep an athlete grounded during their career. Again, even though I mostly talk about athletes and my passion is working with professional athletes, this can really work or be associated with anyone in common life. So not just athletes, but anyone. First and foremost, I want to stress just how very crucial it is that every single elite athlete should actually invest in personal development and develop their authentic identity along the sports journey to ensure success beyond just the sports bubble, whether it's relationships or money or career transitions, or even during your career, you need to be working on your purpose and leadership and real life skills, because as I am, and I'm sure all are too keenly aware, if not managed correctly, there can be serious consequences. And really the solution to any problem, without a doubt, is being grounded and humble in expertise, having that accountability, and then having an applicable education. I'm not talking about a 4-year degree where you regurgitate a bunch of stuff. I'm talking about applicable education that really will serve you in real life. And at the end of the day, folks, change simply won't happen until grown men start wanting to learn. And this leads me right into a perspective of tried and true scenarios and just an overall baseline of methodologies that are really proven to yield positive results. I actually have already done a separate episode just on relationships themselves, but I want to kind of revisit and discuss briefly why they are so important, and mostly why do athletes seem to have the worst case scenarios with relationships. Seriously, it's nuts. And I really believe, doing my work and being so passionate and involved with what I do, I truly believe this is 100% reflective and serves as a fantastic example of why it's so important to work on your personal growth, and especially leadership, is because all in all, I think athletes have the worst skills when it comes to relationships. And that's kind of reflective of what we hear later down in their careers when they just seem to self-implode and self-destruct. And there's thousands of examples. But, relationships are absolutely vital to our lives as human beings and really should be a source of fulfillment and joy. What a shame that oftentimes they're actually not viewed at that because of the trauma I think it's safe to say the majority of professional athletes, aren't coming from ideal backgrounds. But really, unless you live in a cave or in isolation with no access to the outside world, you must learn to ultimately manage relationships, and it isn't always easy. Why are we, as professional athletes, always facing so many relationship crises, even in the modern world. I think the divorce rate is staggering, and I even want to say 60% to 70%, in fact. In this modern 21st century world, which is so fast-paced and it's just speeding up even more, we tend to be locked into our technology, and it seems that perhaps the art of relating to one another is slowly dwindling away. And I actually once read an article in which elders in their 90s were asked what they consider the most important aspect or components of their life, the most rewarding. And you know what they all said? They all wished they'd fostered their relationships more. At the end of the day, on your deathbed, since we know this, and there's a lot of wisdom to our elders, we at least know we're going to get the most out of life if we foster our relationships. So start now. Going to family is I think it's pretty cut and dry. It's going to often be a very positive perspective, or for most, it's a very painful perspective. But no matter who you are, at the core of your identity is family, because you were born somewhere, somehow. You might be from a traditional family, a divorced family, a foster family. It just doesn't really matter. What matters is how you honor where you're from, your background, your history, your lineage. When you look at it this way, instead of judging where you're from and carrying that negativity or emotions in the form of resentment and anger, you can open up more of an opportunity for yourself to flourish in life when you just take full responsibility of everything and your emotions and stop with the stories. And when you work on, for example, honoring your family and doing the small things that you need to do to strengthen it, your life will be enriched, it'll be more fulfilled, it'll be more joyful, and more alive. So strive, I just want to challenge you a little bit. Strive to make contact with your family members every week. Check in, communicate. Don't be a victim of circumstances. Create new circumstances. Families, when it comes to support, actually having done the research that I've done, at the end of the day, some of the most successful transitions out of the sports bubble have to do with that support from family. And families go through the turmoil in the form of whether it's conflict or disease or death or divorce and other hardships. During hard times, you really have a special opportunity to support each other. How awesome is that? And family members can grow closer by weathering the hardship together. So don't run away when things get tough. Don't try to mask whatever's going on through escapism, and whether that's in the form of, there's so much out there. Alcohol, sex, drugs. There's just really no end to that side of things either. And as painful or as difficult as life's situations may seem, you have the chance to foster your family and strengthen those ties that are really, at the end of the day, a huge part of who you are. And it is a pleasure being around people who really honor their family. American tourists particularly enjoy traveling to places where life revolves around family. For example, off the top of my head, Italy, for example, one of my personally favorite countries. I've been there 4 times, where there are businesses and trades that are passed down through the generations. It's just a really popular destination, in which I think at the center of things, why does this this country or this focus on family draw people or interest us, something to that culture. And I personally think it's because of the heartfelt energy that's created through honoring this family and tradition of that bond, of that family, and collectively so too. So ultimately, it's the bond of love that we admire overall. And it's that love that drives our soul to fulfillment. And leading from family, communication, I really want to stress communication because so many athletes, or I even want to say men, okay? Men in particular, communication skills must be worked on in order to get better over time. It's the only way. If you don't reflect on and practice these skills, they cannot improve. They simply won't. So build your skills by practicing being honest, number one, and then kind and aware or compassionate with your words. Hey, there's nothing wrong with the blunt truth, but you don't have to be an absolute egomaniac jerk about it. Truth is a hard pill to swallow anyway. But trying to communicate with people who are important to us, really, as we grow older, this can be a daunting task. And we sometimes hide our emotions for fear of being rejected or hurt or what other people think. Well, you're not being authentic if you're not speaking your truth. And actually, in my experience, you're only hurting yourself by trying to please others, okay? And if you're particularly emotionally wise or maybe a little sensitive, you're going to gain other people's respect more by being yourself, by speaking your truth. And hey, you might come across as a little quirky or awkward or eccentric, but they're going to love you even more at the end. We try to avoid confrontation and drama by speaking little or not at all. This is a huge mistake. It's the other way around. And as a general rule of thumb, communication should always be, again, as honest as possible. We're not, it's so funny because I'm just not sure in this society in particular, from what I see, from what I experience, and after working with people, their gripes and moans and pain is of not being honored as an individual. It's rather, I really don't understand why everyone's trying to fit in and be like everyone else. It's unbelievable. I just want to stress, always be as honest as possible. Do so without judgment and always lead with a compassionate heart. If you practice these three things, I promise that communication with your loved ones will improve with time. Going into that, I guess I can go right into respect. And it really breaks my heart when I hear someone of any age complain about, or even, turn it around and disrespect their parents. And being a parent myself, the amount of energy it takes to raise a child from the ground up is not only extraordinary, but it's also such a selfless task. It's a vast amount of commitment, and it's something you're not taught how to do. We don't go to school to be a parent. So how can we in return harshly judge our parents when we know at heart they truly want the best for their children, more or less? It's really easy to point fingers and judge, but how often do we tell our parents or family members how much we love them? It's really strange. And, we often let outside factors negatively influence us. Don't let this happen. Keep positive and respectful at all times. Has your relationship been ideal in the past? Ask yourself that. Maybe not. The good news is that you have the power to change at the end of the day. You can really work on yourself so much that you are molding and creating ideal situations and scenarios. If you change your energy and your habits and your beliefs and your routines and your presence, you're going to change the energy around you. So work on those skills necessary to foster and strengthen and improve your relationships. I know so many people that complain because their family stresses them out. And, when it comes to that, I work on that a lot with my clients. Perhaps you need to practice some forgiveness and compassion. Just let go. Let go of the old stories. Family is ultimately the wellspring of your life. So honor that by taking time out of your really busy schedule or distracted schedule and spend time with your family. You should really schedule in traditional meetings or holidays, whether your family's near or far. It is essential to life. It's essential to a successful life is having that bond. And it really seems in this crazy world, we've gone backwards in terms of spending time and honoring family. How many these days actually sit together as a family and eat dinner at the table? I've actually recently implemented, I stop time and I chunk my schedule 2 times a week. I cook all organic, farm to table, prepped meals, and we sit at the table, and I'm doing this with my kids 2 times a week, and it's the most rewarding, incredible experience. It's bringing me such abundance, and I really feel like a wealthy king. When I can sit down, I know my family's getting, my kids are getting nourishment, and there's real conversation. And by the way, no phones at the table, no technology at the table. But I really urge you, if you want a game-changing habit or ritual, you want to instill that into your life, sit down at the table with family, make food together, break bread together. That is, it's just irreplaceable. And I think it's quite simple. We just have to make it a priority. Take the time. Yeah, it takes effort, but it's so worth it. It's so fulfilling. I can't explain it anymore. You might have to plan ahead of time, or if your family's apart with technology nowadays, it's so easy to plan. Going on past family. If you're an athlete, I just want to move right into coaches, because coaches play whether you know it or realize it or not. Especially when you go on to, if you sign Division I, a coach plays such an essential role in your life, such a formative age, from 18 to 21, 22. You have to really ask yourself, what is a coach, and what type of coach really emulates what you would like to, who would you like to foster you? Who do you want to be around? What is winning in your mind? There's just a lot of components to this. But, the term overall, coach, was once defined as a person who really embodied mentoring and leadership and support and strength. And a coach was that unifying force that actually brought everyone together. And somewhere along the line, sports became such a big business that coaches starting having to play different roles and more, related to marketing and money-making schemes. And there's still, don't get me wrong, there's still good coaches out there, but you have to look very carefully to find them, and you have to ask questions, and you have to just kind of go deeper and know what your value system is, and do your research, do your diligent research. That's all I'm going to say. If you have hopes of becoming a great player, you need to be mindful of the types of coaches, and especially in the playing situations you choose. Again, just do your diligent research and ask a ton of questions. Be in control of your own destiny and recognize a positive supporter from an egotistical bully, okay? What should you be looking for in a coach? There are many different styles of coaching that can be effective, but these things, these particular, I guess I'll go with 5 things that are true of any good coach. A good coach supports your growth and the team's growth. And a good coach is also a leader who inspires and brings a team together. That separates them. A good coach is really that dedicated teacher. It gives you lessons that are customized to help you progress in your sport. And a great coach recognizes your unique strengths and honors that you're unique, and also honors your weaknesses as well, and then helps you adapt through your training and progression and emotions accordingly. And a good coach will always treat you with honor and respect. Now, they'll hold you, a good coach will also be truthful and hold you accountable, but in a supportive way. To a degree, a kind of a form of a mentor, the great ones. And boy, what I would have given to have like a John Wooden for a coach, a mentor or a coach like that. A mentor is kind of different than a coach, because a mentor is someone who imparts wisdom. The word alone suggests purpose and counsel and loyalty, which loyal to me imparts trust as well. Also, I think a positive mentor almost always has passion. Mentors don't manipulate, they don't persuade, they're not egotistical in a conniving way. They are wise and trusted counselors. And in addition to your head coach, your team will usually consist of other coaches, and you may find mentors among them. Be observant in your interactions with them. Are they going to move you in the direction that you want to go, or are they going to take you backward? You need to know these things. You need to know what you're getting into. You need to get a perspective of other players that have played for them. And a poor mentor will actually stand in your way, and a good mentor will move you forward in a supportive manner, of course. So be on the lookout for other people in your life who can be good mentors, and surround yourself with good mentors. Think about the people that you keep closest to you right now. And I just want you to ask yourself, are they positive influences? Who are the true mentors in your life? And then recognize that the people you surround yourself with will have a great impact on your experience, and probably ultimately your progress as well. So choose them wisely. What's the effectiveness? Is your training program or is your coaching effective? And you need to understand, as an athlete, or I'd even say in a corporate culture, you can even go as far as a corporation actually should have some type of culture, whether that's been established or not. There's going to be an error to it. So in an effective system or program, you feel empowered. You find yourself, you'll have that invigorating energy because you're part of something special that's in alignment with winning values. And it's going to it's going to give you that feeling of support, that feeling of almost, a loving family. You're going to feel well mentored. You're going to feel well coached and have a team camaraderie so strong that you'll feel you could go to war with them until the end of your days. Great athletes don't really need to be preached to because they already, we've already put in the hours and the times of dedication, and we have the skills and passion and the dexterity and endurance to be the best at what we do. Especially if you're a professional athlete, you're already in the 1%. So it's really important you make the right fit and find that effective program that's going to respect your commitment and then your skills and foster the growth of the person that you are, actually. You should never find yourself in a situation where you feel like you're spinning your wheels or losing your motivation, burning out, feeling emotionally exhausted at the end of the day. This is really the result of an ineffective coaching system. I just call it a bush league system because I've experienced them myself, unfortunately. That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because the pain was so great after dedicating my formative years to the sport of basketball, having been, experienced really the negative sides of everything. I can tell you an effective system is going to help an athlete, or if you're a business person or you're in a corporate system, it's going to become an effective system is going to become help you become the very best you can be. But it's also going to prepare you with the life skills necessary to become the best version of yourself, because you'll be supported. I know many corporations actually hire people like myself, leadership coaches, bring them in and create that culture. In the wrong system, in the wrong type of environment, you might even deal with bullying or abuse on many levels. Somewhere along the line, bullying and abuse in athletics has become acceptable. Whether it's physical or psychological, they're common practices in my experience, and not only my high school, but college institution as well. The psychological abuse was really varied, but it ranged from absolute manic screaming and cursing to derision, belittlement, and shaming. And, being forced to do wind sprints for hours until you're sick and faint and ultimately injured, is a kind of an example of a form of physical abuse, if not ignorance. If there's coaches still out there doing that, I think they should be immediately eliminated from their positions. And most often in those days, athletes considered the abuse acceptable because it was a way or a form of really showing your toughness and quote unquote manning up. And that's just utter ignorance, and that alone just is sickening. I just think it's gross. There just weren't any boundaries and weren't unable to stand up for themselves in any way, is what it comes down to. And so that's passed on, that behavior, and it's learned. And, especially bullying in any form, be it physical intimidation or emotional, it should never, ever, ever be tolerated. So don't ever accept coaching that's abusive in any form. You have a choice. At the end of the day, you have a choice. And if you remain firm in your commitment, maybe someday it'll become an unbreakable code amongst athletes. That's how I'd love to see athletes progress, is just never accepting some sort of abuse as a training method. So I can't reiterate enough. Carefully choose your coach and your program. And I'm not trying to be negative, but thinking as an athlete and having been put through the more negative aspects and been in non-winning programs, if we wish to evolve as athletes and especially as people, break through the plateaus and increase our performance, so on and so forth, we have to ask the right questions, and we have to be willing to make the changes when they are necessary, not wait when it's necessary. So I think for myself, my favorite example of a player who was able to do this is the legend Larry Bird. He's one of the greatest players of all time. There's no one with the court awareness like he had. And I love the example. He chose to leave Indiana University with Coach Bobby Knight when it was the peak NCAA perennial powerhouse program. And he had his borders and boundaries and understood what he was about, and just didn't tolerate abuse. And so he transferred to Indiana State in 1975 to play under a more supportive coach, Bill Hodges. And he became one of the most decorated collegiate players of all time. He later signed back in the 70s for a $3.25 million 5-year contract with Coach Bill Fitch and the Celtics. And this, again, in the 70s, that's a ton of money to play a sport, and ultimately led to one of the most prolific careers in NBA history. If Larry Bird hadn't put the effort into seeking the best situation for himself, can you imagine how different the game of basketball would be now? Because he impacted the game so much. And it's those legendary coaches that create the legendary programs, talking about coaches like John Wooden and Phil Jackson and Larry Brown and Pat Summitt at Tennessee. And these were people who not only attained extraordinary results in their sport, but also set their athletes up for greater success later on in their lives. And these players often credit their success to their coaches. And they also, furthermore, often maintain a strong and that a lifelong relationship, something very special. And I know of such players, and I'm extremely envious, I have to say. I wish I could have experienced that. They would do anything to reacquaint and get together with their former coach. And oftentimes not, they have these yearly get-togethers. So ask yourself questions about your coach and reflect on the answers. Now, what type of individual is this coach really? What are the principles of the coaching system? Is this somebody who's out for your best interest or for the team's best interest, depending on what sport you're in, or for their own personal interests, for their own ego, for their own fame? What kind of ethics are the coaches applying to their coaching? And how do other players feel about their coach? Why do they feel that way? These are the types of questions that constantly need to be revisited as you grow and circumstances change as well. I think I can, from here, I'll just go into teammates real quick. I want to think about the construction of this word. Team and mate. A mate is a companion and a comrade, basically. Because you share so much time together, and share a training regimen that's often intensely difficult and challenging, relationships between teammates can really be uniquely strong. When it comes to performing well in a team sport, a teammate really is second only to a coach in terms of importance. And I guess an analogy is teammates are kind of like the supporting beams of a big skyscraper. Rusty or weak beams are going to be forged by negative relationships that are essentially, it can be damaged by jealousy or greed or whatnot. So staying positive with your teammates, discourage derogatory comments, eliminate gossip, squash selfish behavior. You need to realize, you need to know what you're going into. Are your teammates encouraging or are they dividing? Are they supportive and empowering or are they constraining? A positive, supportive teammate's going to promote achievement. They're going to value that equity. They're going to want to be a part of that camaraderie. And those are essential for motivation and ultimately for success. And speaking of success, I want to talk about the 3 C's. It's what I call the 3 C's in my book are complaining, commiserating, and comparing. And these behaviors are really destructive to the cohesiveness of a team and damaging to progress of an individual athlete overall. These terms really have specific meanings to me. Complaining is expressing negative feelings without trying to work out the problem. Commiserating is holding complaining sessions with other athletes, and it's creating that environment that can be really toxic. Commiseration tends to share and build more negativity than anything else, and it's amazing how many more complaints you can think of when actually involved in a commiseration session. Obviously, comparing is looking at other players and focusing on differences and similarities instead of focusing on your own program, your own self, and your own strategies for improvement. And 3 C's are really all common negative behaviors that lead to losing results. If you see one of them in yourself, all you have to do is address it right away by kind of reversing your mindset and just create positive thoughts and thus create positive actions. And these are such a destructive force within a team framework that if you realize someone on your team is exhibiting any of these characteristics, you may want to bring it to their attention, because a lot of athletes, are coming from different programs, different backgrounds, they don't even know. So with kindness and compassion, you can step up and be the leader and create a different environment. Bring that awareness. Help them. If you have a mentor among the coaches on the team, it may be helpful to kind of point out that you're worried about one of your teammates as well. These 3 C's can really wreck team camaraderie by creating that overwhelmingly negative environment that puts everyone's performance at risk. Now, why be involved in something if you're going to be part of a losing outcome where nobody wins at the end of the day? And ultimately, if it can't be resolved, you do have a choice to leave the organization, to leave the program. I've found the most effective way to fight these 3 C's is to lead by example. So be conscious of your words and your behavior and stay an unshakable positive force. Now, motivation is such a powerful force. People actually pay enormous amounts of money to go see motivational speakers, and you have to ask why this is. And it's really the energy behind the words of a motivational speaker that you're actually paying for. And I want to stress energy. Words are actually ancient symbols that are expressed through our vocal cords. And that's all they are. It's a scientifically proven that words create a tone or resonance. And words of positivity create a higher vibration or tone, which makes ourselves, since we're 75% water, we vibrate in response. That's how we can feel tone. And in essence, this makes us feel more alive. It heightens our senses, and it makes us feel like we can do anything in that moment, right? So you can see how positivity can lead to a peak performance. And the positive vibration is the essence of motivation, really. Motivation can come from coaches and teammates, but it can also come from within. A training program, for example, lacking motivation, when that's combined with a negative attitude, it's only going to move you backward and it just keeps you from realizing your gifts, really. So in contrast, the positive vibrations that are directed at training will provide an athlete with the tools or cues to take them where they want to go. So combine that with a self-motivating positive attitude, and you will break through plateaus and move up the rungs of the performance ladder every time. Now, I want to stress that motivation only goes so far. You know, your emotions, you can't always rely on your emotions. You have to rely on your discipline and taking that action through intrinsic motivation. But that is a whole nother discussion. I think at the end of the day, this all comes down to collaboration, which I'll end with, actually. And collaboration is cooperation. It's teamwork. It's working with someone with a common goal or a vision to produce or create. It's innovation. It's vision. It's intuition. And in the sports realm, this ultimately has something to do with striving for a title or a championship. And if you're in an individual sport, you're collaborating with your coach, or maybe you have some mentors as well. And I actually know a lot of athletes that now they see the value in, you know, someone like myself, a leadership coach, a life coach that's going to work on their mindset and their life skills and create what they want and have that sense of accountability. But for a team sport, you know, collaboration involves yourself, your many teammates, and the hierarchy of coaches, of course. You want to make sure that you're all on the same page in that continuity kind of purpose is never, ever lost. Ultimately, success in collaboration comes down to communication. Like I said, it really relies on respectful exchanges. You're through those shared values, through that shared vision and commitment. And yeah, it can be complex and difficult, but mastering this kind of collaboration is a tremendous skill. It's the ultimate life skill, and it's one that will serve you well for the rest of your life. Something that I also do is help organizations and teams or businesses create that those values or that vision and create that culture. One great example is really statistically the most successful sports team in the entire world are the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team. And what turned around and created what they have is a very famous mindset and leadership coach that they brought in that changed the culture of that system, of that program forever. and it's legendary. So, you know, in any team sport, your teammates should be your life force, and your coaches are your backbone. You should really grow together and move forward in a way that produces the results that you're looking for. You need to all be on the same page. How do you want your lingo to be? What does your team stand for? What are your values? What's your vision? What kind of culture do you want to be a part of, and what kind of culture are you trying to create? You need to know these things. And when teammates and coaches ultimately can all work together cooperatively with that dedication of respect and kind of infuse that joy in the process, progress as a team is inevitable. That's how you create champions. That's how championships evolve. Great collaboration leads to championships. And I just want to say very quickly, I want to, again, thank you for tuning into this episode 22. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you know a professional athlete or athlete, please pass this on. Please send them my way. If you want to connect professionally, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a business page on Facebook. Please like and go to that page. You can contact me through there. I'm on Twitter, and I'm also on Instagram. Please follow me on Instagram. If you are interested in working with me, just contact me. I'll be in touch. And at the end of the day, don't forget, you are in control. And I hope you have a great week. Until next week, take care.
Thank you for joining us. Listen every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern to Frederick Intiman host Mind, Body, Life. Connect with Frederick at www.globalvoiceradio.com. Tune in next week for another edition of Mind, Body, Life on Global Voice Radio.